Greetings, YouTube. We all hold ethical and moral standards. Some we agree on, some we don't. And some of us work in an environment where we are required to do certain things in certain ways because it's part of the job. And in my particular job, we have something which is considered to be the holy grail, which is called traceability. And traceability means that when you produce something, you write down what materials that went into the thing. You write down the dates and things, so everybody is on the same page, and they know that the parts that you made on this date, because you put your name and the date on, or initials and the date on the labels, those parts for that day, we can look up the production chart, and the production chart will tell us which the batch number was for the the silicone or the rubber that went into it, and what is the batch number for the inserts, if they have inserts, whether they be plastic or steel or aluminum. And some of them are very generic. It's like the plastic ones have life expectancies that will outlive me, so we just don't have an expiration date for plastic inserts, but they just have a lot number. And a lot of the steel ones have to get baked, so they don't have individual numbers. They just have a general, everything on this wagon expires in 6 days or something like that. But some of the things come in distinct units. They come in boxes. So in each box has its own label, and it has a unique number, which is called the unique number. It's actually written on, it says unique number right on there. It's really easy to find. And you record the unique number onto your production chart so that they know specifically which box of parts you used on that day. Now, you're going to use more than one box. You might use a dozen boxes, and you record every single one of those numbers on your production chart. Well, at least you're supposed to. I do. And I've been trying with certain levels of resistance to get the guys that are under my control, because I'm the lead, to do the same. Lots of people don't write down these unique numbers. I do. Why? Because I was told to. And it's a really minor thing to do. It gives traceability. It makes the customer happy. And it takes seconds to write down, I think it's a 9-digit number. Boom, 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 you're finished. All right, it's not that difficult to do. But I was getting resistance from someone that works for me. And I asked, I'm not angry or anything. I'm just asking, like, why won't you comply with my instruction to do this? I said, because that's all I ask you to do this, you're not doing this, why? And their response was, because no one else is doing it. Now, they're correct. The people in the previous shifts, there's nothing on there where the unique numbers don't exist in their parts of the chart. We use one chart for every 24-hour period. The person wasn't lying. The other shifts had not used those numbers. And I just find that a really wearisome response. And so I just looked at them and I said, morality is what we do in the dark. And then I walked away. I don't know if that comment really got to them or was it lost on them. I was annoyed at that moment, so I didn't check. But that's a particular philosophy that I've been adhering to for a very long time. That morality is what we do in the dark. What we do when no one is looking, what we do when we are not being held accountable, is a judgment of our morals. Are you moral when you are not being observed? Or do you only act moral when you are under observation? Because if that's the case, you're not actually moral. You're just masking your immorality so that you will not be held accountable. Now, I'm talking about a production chart. Something insignificant in the cosmic scheme of things. But that frame of mind is seriously important to me. If you're not going to do everything you're supposed to do, how do I know if you're going to do everything you're supposed to do when it counts? I've lost count of how many times I've come to work and found that someone has parked a pallet of something right in front of the big red sign that says fire exit. So I take a picture, I send the picture to my boss, and then I move the pallet. I literally have lost count of how many times I've had to do this. Big red sign, fire exit, and they park it right in front of the goddamn door. I would rather not die because someone was lazy. I must be strange like that. I want to be able to get out of the room, out of the building in an emergency. And parking pallets that weigh hundreds of pounds in the path of an exit is a good way to get somebody killed. Nobody saw them do that. There was no witnesses to that act, so they did it, and they walked away. And I will probably never be able to figure out who did it. I'm not sure if the bosses that get told that this happened because my boss tells them, because my boss has a picture. I don't know if they do anything or not either, because it keeps happening. Interestingly, one day I found a pallet there that had a 4-foot roll of bubble wrap on it. You needed a pallet to move a 4-foot roll of bubble wrap, which weighs all of 5 pounds, maybe. Okay, yeah, people are weird. But what people do when they're not being observed is important. What you do when you're not being held accountable is important. Are you moral in the dark? I strive to be. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I've always been moral in the dark. I try to do better today than I did yesterday. And I think that's a pretty good philosophy to adhere to. Try to do better today than you did yesterday. Try to do better tomorrow than you did today. Incremental improvements, incremental changes. But when you're asked to do something and it isn't a moral or ethical violation of who you are, I'm not asking you to break any laws. I'm just asking you to dot an I or cross a T because that's what the customer wants. I don't think that's a lot to ask. And I don't think it's a lot to ask to expect people to be moral and ethical in the dark when they're not being watched, when there is no accountability. Because that's the foundation of a functioning society, which might just explain a lot.